Hello, and welcome to this edition of Breaking the Cycle. I'm District Attorney Tim Cruz. My guest for today's show is Tori Ferrari, the director of Bloom, a short-term teen challenge program dedicated to helping teen girls ages 12 to 17 and their families through difficult times. Tori's been working with troubled young people and their families for over 20 years. 15 of those years as the director of the Teen Challenge of Arizona Springboard Home, the program that Bloom is modeled after. Welcome, Tori. Through the Plymouth County Drug Abuse Task Force, we've had the privilege of working with Teen Challenge. And I would like to first take this opportunity to thank you for all the great work that you have done with our youth in need. There are very limited opportunities for residential programs for girls and young women in need. Can you tell us how Bloom got started?
About 2.5 years ago, I was sitting in Tucson, Arizona as the director of a short-term Teen Challenge program. And my phone rang, and it was a father calling for his 15-year-old daughter. He was looking for a faith-based program to help his daughter who had become addicted to heroin. And I was telling him all about the program, and he was very excited about the program. And then he asked me the question, "Where are you located?" And I told him we were located in Tucson, Arizona. And he said, "Well, that doesn't work for me because I'm calling from Hyannis." And he said, "What am I supposed to do now?" And I said, I don't know. There aren't any programs out there, Teen Challenge short-term programs for adolescent girls. And he said, no. He says, there are no options for me. And he hung the phone up on me. And so sitting in Tucson, Arizona 2.5 years ago, I knew that I was headed to New England to start a short-term adolescent girls home for Teen Challenge.
So how did you do that? How did you make that transition from Arizona to Hyannis or to New England?
Well, ironically enough, I actually moved here in February, which you don't do from Arizona.
Right.
But through a series of events, contacting Teen Challenge here and discovering the need. I was unaware of the need here. I was unaware of how tremendous the epidemic had become here. And so just a series of events and getting in touch with Teen Challenge and saying, I'd like to help you put this together. And before I knew it, here I was in search for a home and going through the licensing process, and all culminated about 14 months ago when we opened up the girls' home here in southern Massachusetts.
And so far, so good as we start on that road. And I applaud your efforts for really, doing that, because there is a significant need here in not just Massachusetts, but also in New England. And I think coming on the other side of the country is a big step, especially for the young girls. And it's not just opioid problems.
Right.
It's all. Can you explain for us what other problems that the young girls may be having, that would end up in Bloom?
We see a wide variety of issues. Yes, we see the drugs and we see the alcohol. We also see self-mutilation. We see broken family relationships. We see abuse, neglect, suicidal tendencies. Pretty much, you name it, we see it. And the reality is, even if they may not be struggling with a drug or alcohol problem currently, if there isn't some kind of intervention in their at-risk behavior, they're headed that direction. And so we always approach it of, we are in the business of intervention as well as prevention, even within the residential program.
And is it usually started by a parent, or have there been times when young girls have reached out to you on their own?
They have. It's usually parents or grandparents that are giving us a call, that are looking for a program, although I get phone calls from social workers all the time that, the family has expressed a specific desire for a faith-based program. And so more and more we're getting those phone calls. But on rare occasion, we actually will get a phone call from a 13, 14-year-old that says, this is my situation, and if I don't get help, I'm not going to make it.
So somebody reaches out to you, and is there a process that the family has to go through before there can be a bed for a young woman?
There is. We actually have right now a maximum capacity of six young ladies at a time. We actually, our total capacity is 10, so, but we're licensed with the state, and so it's a 6-to-1 staff-student ratio. And so right now, we have applications that come in. We interview every young lady for our program because we're not a lockdown facility. They need to be willing to participate in our program. And I want to make sure that we are a resource not just for somebody to come and stay in our program, but if they're not a fit and they need something different than our program, we want to be a resource to the parents and say, you know, let's help you find the program that is best suited for your child.
What's the average age of the child that may be in the program?
We have young ladies that will come to us as young as 12, which is really difficult to even wrap your brain around,
Sure.
but as young as 12, all the way up to the age of 18. Once they turn 18, they're no longer a candidate for our program. We'll refer them to the Women's Home in Providence, the Teen Challenge Women's Home in Providence. But they can come in even if they're going to turn 18 when they're in our program. I've been doing this almost 20 years, and realistically, I've never had a single one of them on their 18th birthday walk out the front door. We really encourage them. They need to finish what they start. This is about changing the trajectory of their life. And so they can come in shortly before their 18th birthday. For some parents, it's that last opportunity. And that's the short-term program for Teen Challenge really provides that opportunity for them.
So did you really take like the program when you wrote in Arizona, take that, talk to the Teen Challenge people and try to just put it within their framework as best as you can, and it's just for younger women, because I know Teen Challenge sometimes is a misnomer, because lots of times the young men that are involved in Teen Challenge are not teenagers.
Right.
And I know this Bloom obviously is for much younger females versus the males that are in that system. But what are the differences, or what are the likes, I guess, between Teen Challenge, a program for a Teen Challenge young man versus a young woman who may be in Bloom?
Well, and we are Teen Challenge, so a lot of the similarities are the curriculum, actually, that the girls complete is the same as the curriculum that the men complete. Some of the differences are that out of the hundreds of Teen Challenge programs throughout the country, all of them are 12, 15, 18, 24 months long as a program. If you're 13, 14 years old, that's too long to be out of the home when you're trying to build the family relationships. And so we are a minimum of 3 months, maximum of 5 months. And really kind of the length of the program depends on the young lady in the program, but also her parents, because we have very strong parental involvement. We really approach it from a 360 view of this young lady is going to be in our program for a few months, but then they're going back into their homes. So we're interested in impacting the home as well for the greatest level of success. And so it is very unique because we're licensed, obviously, by the state, and we're working with young ladies that are under the age of 18. So we have some different criteria that we have to meet than the men's program or the women's program would.
Is there an educational portion to Bloom? So therefore, if you have a young person, obviously between 12 and 18, they're probably in high school or even younger, perhaps, you know, so to take them out of school for 3 to 5 months, which is obviously a necessary thing for them based upon the challenges that they're facing. What happens to their education for that 3 to 5 months?
A lot of times their education has already been interrupted because if they have been using, or even if a family member has, or if there's been abuse or whatever it is, multiple hospitalizations, a lot of different things can interrupt their education. So we actually are partnered with New Testament Christian School in Cedarville, and we are part of their homeschool extension program. So the young ladies, while they're in our program, they're completing Teen Challenge curriculum, but they're also completing additional curriculum. So before they complete, we give the information to New Testament Christian School. They look through all of it, and they provide a transcript that they can take back to their schools. So they're actually enrolled in New Testament while they're enrolled in Bloom.
So it sounds like the young lady really has to want to be in your program, because it sounds like it's an awful lot of work. If you're talking schoolwork on top of Teen Challenge-like work and the challenges that come with that. So that must be a young lady who understands that she has a problem, and whatever it may be, family problems, whether it be educational problems, drug problems, whatever it is, and that they're willing to abide by what you do.
Well, and that's the key word. They don't have to be happy about it. Sometimes they'll say, well, my parent is the problem, which I'll take that. That's okay, because we'll work with that. But yeah, they do have to be willing to participate in the program. They aren't always happy when they come in because it's not their decision, but it is a decision that almost every last one of them comes to appreciate was made for them because it changes their life. It absolutely does. But it's not an easy program. Not everybody that starts the program will finish the program.
And is it sometimes as one of the kids are in the program and they can't survive it? They have to leave. They have to go home. Whatever. Do they have an opportunity if they want to reapply and come back?
I haven't encountered that at all here. In the time that I was in Arizona, we had a couple that would come back for a second time, but very, very rarely. That's why we really have the 3-month to 5-month, is because it gives us the opportunity. It's designed to be completed in 3 months, but we want to make sure that when they complete our program, they are set up to be successful, and that the parents are set up to be successful. And so sometimes that means that 4 months is a better time frame for them. Sometimes they go all the way up to 5 months, but it's designed to be completed in 3.
And what if the family or the child, they're not interested in the faith-based portion of that? Is it still something, does that prohibit them from joining Bloom?
You know, usually when they're calling us, they're looking for a faith-based program. If they're not, and they call us by accident, we will help them find a program that's better suited to what they're looking for. But every family that has a child that comes into our program, they absolutely know that we're faith-based. The young lady knows. I have a conversation with them and make sure that they understand. I don't require that any of these young ladies believe the way we do. I ask them that they be respectful and can participate, and they're in agreement with that. But typically the families that are seeking us out, they're looking for a faith-based solution. They likely have gone through a lot of different programs, and so now they're looking for a faith-based one.
Once a parent drops a child off, you go through the contractual relationship that you do with the parent for the child to stay there. What is the parent required to do, if anything, once the child is with you?
A lot. We tell parents that they are just as enrolled in our program, they're just not living there. So we require that the parents participate in our counseling, that they participate in parent workshops that we have. We give parents homework assignments and books that they need to read. So parents are very, very engaged in the process. Because again, if the child has successfully made changes, but they're going back into an environment and the parents haven't changed some of their parenting, then it's unlikely that they're going to continue to walk out some of those changes that they've made.
So even though the parent is not staying there and the child is removed from the parents, it really, in some instances, is kind of putting the family back together.
Absolutely. Yes.
From whatever the broken family relationship may be. And does that also entail perhaps counseling for the parents too?
Absolutely.
In conjunction with the child themselves?
Yes. So the family counseling, the family workshops, all of those are required. And I make sure that parents are aware very, very, early on in their inquiry process that this is not drop your daughter off and 90 days pick her up and she's all fixed. That's not the way this works. This is really a partnership between the parents and their daughter. And we're just there to help facilitate it.
Well, that's great because, it's obviously something's broken and it doesn't just, like you said, you don't stick it just in a drawer and then pull it out 9 days later to fix it. It's going to take work to do that. And I'm hopeful that, that some of the graduates from your course, how many young ladies have graduated from Bloom since you've started so far?
We've had 8 complete the program. So.
And how are they doing?
Phenomenal. Right now, and when we measure success, we're not looking at immediate success.
Sure.
We're looking actually at 5 years post-completion. That's true with any teen challenge. So it's premature for us to say what our success rate is. Every single one of our graduates, though, to date, we absolutely would consider successful. They have not gone back to whatever it was that brought them to us in the first place, whether it was drugs, alcohol, cutting, the family relationships have been restored. That's how we measure the success. And we're looking for the long-term success, not the immediate, they're surviving. We want to see the long-term success rate.
So most of those young ladies are back with their families, back in their regular schools, wherever they were at, and taking the skills that they learned
Yes.
at Bloom to take them back into the real world,
Yes.
and how they apply them now when they're in school and social settings and whatnot. So I mean that's why it's great. It's important to have programs like Bloom, like Teen Challenge now, because the need is so great.
It's huge.
And I mean, all we have to do, I think we were talking before we went on, all you have to do is just see the crazy and terrible things that happen in the world.
Yeah.
And trying to get back to, the family, the structure of the family.
Yes.
And with faith-based, whatever, to the extent that they're interested in getting into that, I think that's a great idea, and I applaud, your efforts for doing that, because I think it's, even though it's right now it's 8 young women, maybe a year from now, it may be 20 women, and that they can also help. And I know part of the Teen Challenge program is many of the young men that graduate from Teen Challenge, they stay and they become mentors.
Yes.
And that, I'm guessing that's what you'd like to see happen with Bloom.
It's a little trickier because they're under 18.
Right.
So if we have a 16-year-old complete the program, they have to wait a few years before they can come back and do that. But case in point, we had a young lady actually who's an apprentice right now here at Bloom, who completed the program in Arizona a year and a half ago.
Really?
And so when she was getting close to turning 18, she contacted me and said, I'd really like to come out and I'd like to give back in the way that people gave into my life. And she's been out here, she's actually finishing up her apprenticeship in the next 2 weeks, and then she's going on a 9-month mission trip. So, this is an exceptional young woman who, for all intents and purposes, a lot of people had written off because she was heavily addicted. She was, you name the problem, and she was smack dab in the middle of it. So definitely a success.
Now, is this something that you receive grants, or do you apply for grants? Or I know with Teen Challenge, they like to get private fundraising
Yes.
to put up their buildings and all that. So they get donors from the community to help them. Is there a way that the community can help Bloom to go forward with that?
Resounding yes.
Yes.
We actually are entirely privately funded. So we are private placement and private pay. That means that we do have an expectation on parents that they are going to participate in the financial support of their daughters. We ask that parents support their daughters 50% of what the cost is to us, which means that I'm committing to the other 50%.
Right.
So we do apply for grants, but we, federal, local government, that's because we're faith-based, that's very challenging. So we're always looking for people in the community to help underwrite, the expenses. It costs us $32,000 for every single young lady that's in our program for an average of a 4-month stay. So $8,000 a month for every girl. I'm committed to finding $4,000 of that for every student every month. And so, we do a lot of the same events that the men's centers do as far as banquets and special events to help raise that.
And where are you located? I don't think I asked you that. Where is the?
We keep it quiet. We are in southern Massachusetts.
Okay.
That's as close as we get to.
Except for the school. The school we know is down in Cedarville.
Yes.
Where the kids go. But
Correct.
So anybody from Massachusetts, anybody from New England, there's no parameters as to you have to be from a certain state or a certain area.
No.
You just have to be willing to commit to have your child, and also the financial commitment to have your
Correct.
child in there for those 3 to 5 months to make sure they can get the help that they need. And it's great to hear that where you are right now is that it's been successes, because it's a difficult field that you're in.
It is.
And many times, temporary. You say 5 years out. Many times, temporary success could have relapses and go back, and people may start from the beginning again. And that's unfortunately many times the norm. And that's why it's great to hear that so far, knock on wood, that's where you're at.
Yeah, and it's really we're trying to help them understand. There's sometimes especially when we're kids, we get this very narrow view of our world, and that's why in part the short term is so important, because again, 14, 15 years old, looking at 15 months, that's forever when you're 15 years old.
Right.
So looking at the shorter term program, but also giving them a broader perspective of these are life decisions. And if they don't start making different ones, it changes everything. And helping them understand who they are, their value, and again, the long-term goal for them. You know, and I'm such a firm believer in this program and the potential it has to change their lives. You know, I told you the story of the young lady that's currently an apprentice in our program, and she graduated a year and a half ago. The 8 young ladies that have completed our program, you know, are doing exceptionally well. But there was a young lady that entered the program at 16, high school dropout, didn't struggle with drugs and alcohol, but was headed that direction, abuse, neglect, trafficked, the whole bit, and went into the program in Arizona. And in 3 months, it so changed her life that she went on and graduated high school and went to college and kept going, and is now here in New England starting a program exactly like the one that changed her life. So that was me 33 years ago, a high school dropout that a lot of people had written off. And so when these young ladies say, I can't do this, you know, this is too hard, and I'll say, you know what? Yeah, you can, because I've been where you've been. And this isn't about, you know, the next 5 minutes. This is about the rest of your life. Because in young women, you're talking about generations. My 2 sons didn't have an addict for a mom because my life changed long before I ever got to that place.
Well, it's great to hear your story. It's great to hear the stories of the success stories of the girls that are in the program right now, because you're absolutely right. I mean, it is stopping, it's working with kids, it is breaking cycles of problems that we have in our communities, whether it be drug abuse, whether it be domestic violence, whether it be, you mentioned the word traffic, we're dealing with human trafficking issues now, and much like drug abuse, human trafficking, they have no zip codes, they are everywhere, and people may not expect to see them in their communities, but they're here.
Everywhere.
And you don't have to look far beneath the surface many times.
That's right.
And a lot of the young women in your program, the Young Men in Teen Challenge, and other men and women who are not quite as lucky to get into your programs, they're really at risk as of a lot of the challenges that are out there. So, you know, I think, you know, what you're doing in bringing the program here, and now that you're just starting up, I think that we really need to try to get behind Bloom and make sure that we can give the same resources to the young ladies that Teen Challenge is able to give to the young men in the area, and make sure that we can continue on. So I applaud you for what you've done and for the differences you've made in those people's lives, because that's really what it is. It is about doing the things in our community and dealing with these terrible issues that are out there that sometimes are overwhelming. And you're right, go slow. It's not 5 minutes. It's the rest of your life. Baby steps.
And all of us can do something. You know, people say, oh, I could never do what you do. Great, you're not called to do what I do. I'm called to do what I do, but whatever somebody can do, whether it's financially supporting or you know, just getting involved and getting the word out there, everybody can do something. And the problem is large enough that nobody's ever going to say, no, we have enough resources. No, we don't need any more help. You know, there's always something that can be done.
How are you getting the word out there about Bloom? How do you get it out there so that people know it's even there?
Well, we're doing more and more on social media. We've held a lot of events that were strictly for that reason, because when people think Teen Challenge, they think of the men. Right. And so really trying to expand people's understanding of what Teen Challenge is, and doing different events in churches and just in the community. We have an event coming up March 30th called Light Up the Night. And we are doing that as much for awareness on the issue as it is we want to be a resource in the community. So we are lighting up the north side of the Cape Cod Canal with paper lanterns. And the lanterns are purchased either in memory of somebody that's been lost in this battle, or as a commitment by somebody saying, I'm not done fighting. We're going to keep fighting until there's no more, nothing more to fight.
And I know that you also, I mean, that's a great program. It's going to be March 30th at 7 o'clock. The walk starts at the train bridge on the Cape Cod Canal.
Yes.
And I would suggest to anybody that is interested to go there, to be there.
Yes.
And even if you don't have somebody that's been lost, whatever,
Right.
it's important to stand up as a community against this problem that is out there that we're all dealing
Yeah.
with.
Yeah,
Because
we
there's
all are.
nobody there, here, anywhere that doesn't know somebody that's been touched by that problem
It's true.
and how it affects all of us. And also, I just want to ask you also, do you get out yourself and talk
I do.
about this? And where do you go? How do you get that
Any
word out
place
too?
anybody will let me. I spend a lot of time going into different churches. I speak to a lot of different groups. I mean, when I say anybody that will let me talk about this, I will go. So men's breakfasts, conferences that are held, drug forums, all of those different things. We actually are hosting on the 10th of March. We are hosting a drug awareness workshop for parents at Crossroads Carver Church from 9 until noon. And so, there are a lot of parents out there. Parents, honestly, have no clue.
Right.
They have no idea what their kids are walking into every single day. And then April 14th, we have at Brockton First Assembly, we have a parenting workshop. And I like to say I get all of our information we get from the experts, which are kids. And they're saying things like, these are the things I wish my parents had asked me. These are the areas I wish my parents had invaded my privacy, because it would have kept me from doing this, this, and this. So we'll host different things like that. We have a Facebook page that outlines a lot of the different activities we're doing. Bloom, A Place for Girls, is the Facebook page, and getting the information out there as much as possible.
Well, that's great. Well, I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate you coming to our task force meetings, because that's also an important avenue of getting things out there. So I thank you for all the great work that you're doing at Bloom, and let's get the word out there and let's keep saving kids. I think it's a great thing you're doing. So I want to thank you, because it's great information for all of us to have today. So I want to thank you also for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
So, well, that concludes this episode of Breaking the Cycle. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and if you'd like more information regarding Bloom, A Place for Girls, please visit their website at www.tcnebloom.org. That's www.tcnebloom.org. Thanks again.